What if the one person who knows you best is the one you can't admit you love? What happens when hiding your truth becomes more painful than facing the world's judgment? And how far would you go to finally be honest, even if it means risking everything in front of everyone you know? My name is Kai Thompson, and at 17, I thought I had life figured out until the day everything I believed about myself cracked wide open. I grew up in a quiet Seattle suburb where the rain never seemed to stop and the expectations never let up. My dad worked construction and believed real men played football, kept their feelings locked tight, and married a nice girl someday. My mom taught third grade and smiled through everything, but I could see the worry in her eyes whenever I came home late from hanging out with Benjamin. Benjamin Hale had been my best friend since freshman year. We met in biology lab when he accidentally knocked over a beaker, and I helped him clean it up before the teacher noticed. From that moment, we were inseparable. He was the golden boy, tall blonde with an easy laugh who made the varsity soccer team without trying. I was the quiet one who ran track, stayed in the shadows, and pretended my heart didn't race every time he threw an arm around my shoulders after practice. We shared everything: late-night video games, secrets about girls that never felt right for me, and dreams about escaping this town after graduation. But lately the secrets had grown heavier. Last summer at his family's cabin on the lake, we stayed up talking until dawn. He told me about the pressure from his dad to get a scholarship, and I almost said it right then that the only thing I wanted was him. Instead, I swallowed it down like always. Back at school, the rumors started. Someone saw us at the movies and whispered that we were too close. I laughed it off, but inside I was terrified. Every hallway glance, every locker room joke about bros felt like a landmine. The school assembly for homecoming week was only 3 days away. They had an open mic segment for students to share messages of unity. I lay awake that night staring at the ceiling, my chest tight, with a question that wouldn't leave me alone. What if I stood up there and told the truth? What if Benjamin looked at me with disgust, and our friendship ended right there under the bright lights? The fear was real, but so was the exhaustion of pretending. I practiced the words in my mirror 100 times, my voice shaking. Benjamin, I love you, and not the way friends are supposed to. By the time the assembly bell rang, I could barely breathe. The auditorium was packed with 400 kids, teachers, and parents. Benjamin sat in the front row with the soccer team, laughing at something on his phone. I waited in line behind the podium, my hands sweating. When my name was called, I walked up the steps, feeling every eye on me. The microphone felt cold in my grip. I looked straight at Benjamin, and the words finally came out clear and steady. The silence that followed was deafening. Gasps rippled through the crowd like a wave. A few kids laughed nervously, but most just stared. Benjamin's face went pale, his mouth slightly open. I could see the exact moment recognition hit him, the shift from confusion to something deeper. Before anyone could react, he stood up, walked to the stage, and pulled me into a hug that wasn't just friendly. Kai, he whispered so only I could hear, I've been waiting for you to say that. The principal tried to regain control, but the applause started slow, then exploded. Not everyone clapped. I saw a couple of guys from the football team shake their heads, and one girl from my English class looked away like she was embarrassed for me. But the cheers drowned them out. Benjamin and I left the stage together, his hand brushing mine as we walked down the aisle. Outside in the hallway, the questions started immediately. Are you guys together now? What about soccer? Does your dad know? That night at my house, the Real storm hit. My dad met us at the door, his face red. What the hell was that stunt, Kai? You embarrassed the whole family. Mom stood behind him, twisting her hands, but she didn't speak up. Benjamin waited outside, giving us space. I told my dad the truth for the first time that I had known since I was 14, and that hiding it was killing me. He slammed the door in my face and didn't speak to me for a week. Benjamin drove me to his place instead. His parents were surprisingly calm. His mom made us hot chocolate and said she had suspected for a while. His dad just nodded and said as long as we kept our grades up, it was our business. That night, Benjamin and I sat on his roof talking until the stars came out. He admitted he had feelings too, but was scared of losing the team and his future. We didn't kiss, we just held hands and promised to figure it out together. For the first time in years, the weight on my chest felt lighter. But the backlash came fast. The next day at school, whispers turned into stares. A guy from the soccer team, named Tyler, cornered me in the locker room. You're making the whole team look bad, Thompson. Fix this, or you're out. Benjamin defended me, and suddenly the team was split. Some guys supported us, others stopped talking to Benjamin entirely. I started getting anonymous texts calling us names I had only heard in movies. My track coach pulled me aside and said he supported me, but I might lose my scholarship chances if the drama continued. The weeks that followed tested everything we had. Benjamin and I tried to keep things normal, but normal was gone. We ate lunch together every day in the corner of the cafeteria where no one bothered us. I told him about the nights I cried in my room wondering if I had ruined his life. He told me about the argument with his coach who suggested he take a break from the team until things settled. We both sacrificed something. He skipped a big game to stay with me when the bullying got bad, and I quit the debate club because the stares were too much. My mom finally spoke up at dinner one night. She looked at my dad and said, "He's our son. We raised him to be honest. If you can't accept that, maybe you need to look at yourself." Dad didn't answer, but the next day he left a note on my bed that just said, "I'm trying." It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Benjamin's family invited me over for dinner, and his little sister asked if we were boyfriends now. We both blushed and laughed for the first time in days. Then the misunderstanding hit. Tyler spread a rumor that Benjamin was only with me for attention and that I had forced the confession. It went viral on the school group chat. Benjamin got into a fight defending me and ended up suspended for 2 days. I felt guilty, like my courage had cost him everything. We argued in his car one rainy afternoon. "Maybe I should have stayed quiet," I said. He grabbed my hand and said, "No, Kai. This is who we are. We don't hide anymore." That fight made us stronger. We started a small support group after school, just a few kids who had been watching from the sidelines. One girl named Maya shared her own story of coming out as bi, and suddenly we weren't alone. The principal even let us use an empty classroom once a week. Word spread and more students showed up. For the first time, the school felt less like a battlefield and more like a place where we could breathe. Winter break gave us space to heal. Benjamin and I drove down to Portland for a weekend, just the two of us. We walked along the river talking about college applications and how we wanted to go somewhere together where being gay wasn't the headline. He applied to the University of Washington for soccer and I for track. We held hands in public for the first time and no one stared. It felt like freedom. Back home, the family tension eased slowly. Dad started asking Benjamin questions about soccer instead of avoiding him. Mom baked cookies for us both and left them on the counter with a note that said, "Proud of you boys." But the external pressure didn't stop. A local news station picked up the story of the school confession, and suddenly reporters were calling. We turned them down, but the attention brought out more hate online. Someone posted our photos with ugly captions. Benjamin's grandma called from Florida and said she didn't approve, but she would pray for us. It hurt, but we kept moving forward. The real test came at the winter formal. Benjamin wanted to go as dates. I was terrified, but he said, "We've already faced the whole school once. This is just dancing." We showed up in matching ties, and when the slow song played, he pulled me close. A few kids clapped, others looked away, but no one stopped us. That night, we shared our first real kiss under the gym lights, soft and careful and full of everything we had been holding back. It wasn't dramatic, it was honest, and that made it perfect. Yet the betrayal came from the least expected place. Maya, our support group friend, told a reporter everything without asking us. The article twisted our story into something sensational, and suddenly the principal called us in for a meeting. We felt exposed again. Benjamin almost walked away from me that night, saying the pressure was too much. I told him I would understand if he needed space. Instead, he stayed, and we promised to face whatever came next together. Spring brought new challenges and new strength. The soccer team voted to let Benjamin back full-time after a team meeting where he stood up and said, "Kai is part of my life. If you can't handle that, that's on you." Half the team walked out, but the other half stayed, and that was enough. I ran my best track season ever because the anger and fear had turned into fuel. We started planning for prom like normal kids, and that felt revolutionary. My dad finally sat me down one evening. He admitted he was scared for me, scared of the world being cruel. He told me about his own brother who had struggled in silence years ago and never found happiness. "I don't want that for you," he said. It wasn't a full apology, but it was the closest thing to acceptance I had ever gotten. Benjamin's parents threw us a small graduation party early, and for the first time, both families were in the same room without tension. The climax hit during the last school assembly of the year, the same stage where I had confessed. A group of students organized an anti-bullying rally, and they asked us to speak. I stood there again, this time with Benjamin beside me. We talked about fear, misunderstanding, and how one moment of honesty could ripple out and change hearts. When we finished, the entire auditorium rose to their feet, clapping not out of shock, but out of respect. Even Tyler nodded from the back row. That standing ovation wasn't just for us, it was for every kid who had ever felt different. Graduation day arrived warm and sunny. Benjamin and I walked across the stage together, our families cheering from the stands. My dad actually smiled when he shook Benjamin's hand. We had both been accepted to the University of Washington and planned to room together. The future felt open wide and full of possibility. Looking back, we had faced every kind of storm: internal doubt, family rejection, peer pressure, and public scrutiny. There were nights I thought it would break us, but every time we chose each other and chose truth. The sacrifices, the misunderstandings, the moments of pure fear all led to this place where we could stand tall without hiding. The school that once whispered now celebrated us. Friends who had stayed silent spoke up. Even the teachers said our story had changed the culture. We didn't fix everything, but we proved that love, when it's real, doesn't need permission from the world. It just needs two people brave enough to live it. As we drove away from the ceremony, Benjamin turned to me and said, "We did it, Kai." I smiled and replied, "We only just started." In the end, this story showed me that courage isn't loud or perfect, it's simply refusing to stay invisible. If you're carrying a secret that feels too heavy, remember that the people who truly matter will surprise you with their hearts. My advice is simple: take the step. When you're ready, surround yourself with kindness and never apologize for loving who you love. Life gets brighter on the other side of fear, and the world needs more people willing to stand on that stage and speak their truth. Choose honesty, choose connection, and watch how everything you thought was impossible becomes real.